Hi everyone, I'm Haylley Pittam, and today with me I have Greg and Evelyn Keys all the way from Australia. They are in the outback near Melbourne and they have their own swimming pool, and they are very well known as a duo within the aqua industry, as well as independently their own individual instructor. So welcome to my talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When you meet people and they ask what your job is, what do you tell them that your job is?
Well, what can I say? I normally start with saying, have you got 5 minutes? Because it takes longer than 5 minutes to go and explain what we do. Normally it comes down to the swimming pool, working with water, working with people. For me, it's a bit easier to say I run a swim school.
Yes.
So there's lots of children that come in, but also adults. Lately for me, that means the last 10 years here in Australia, there's a lot of people with autism, or they're on the spectrum and they have found their way to the pool. So that's what I do in summertime, and in wintertime I write books and programs and all sorts of things that we think is nice to do in wintertime.
Yeah, fantastic.
I just basically tell them that I'm a advocate of aquatics, wellness, and I'm an educator, and that I write a bit and I present a bit.
Yeah,
basically.
it's fantastic. So with the fact that you obviously have your own swimming pool, you're teaching swimming lessons to children, are you also doing Aquarabics there as well?
Yeah, we definitely do. We have people, and maybe that's a bit strange as well, but some of my clients, they drive over 100 kilometers to go and do a class.
Wow.
Because in the outback, there's only small swimming pools and there's not enough teachers. There's only the odd one or two that will teach.
Yeah.
So some people, they actually drive over 100 kilometers to go and do an aquatic class, or do swimming classes for the children. So that's a fair way to drive.
That's incredible. That is really incredible. That's dedication.
Yeah, it is.
So Evelyn, how did you start in the aqua industry? Because you two met at IAFC, so we'll talk about that a little bit in a bit. But yes, please tell us about your journey into being an Aquarabics instructor.
Well, when I was very young, and I mean, say 3 or 4 years old, my mum used to take us to the beach, and I was a real beach girl. From woe to go early in the morning until you got blue lips, and then mum said, it's enough, we need to go home. So I had my time at the beach, and I absolutely adored it. Then there was a swimming pool being built in our town where we lived, which is Goes in Zeeland, in the south part of the Netherlands. And it was really cold, as it was in these days. There was no heating in the pool. So Mum said, okay, let's go to the swimming pool. So that's what we did, and we did the same things. And at the beach, there was only one problem. My mum couldn't swim.
Oh,
so
wow.
She was there and she walked into the shallow water, and that's where it stopped. But she was very good with kids. And then the manager of the swimming pool said to her, why don't you come and work as a teacher? I can give you a job as a swimming teacher because you're very good with kids. And my mum said, well, I would love that, but there's one problem, I can't swim. So the manager said, well, look at your little pipsqueak there. And I was about 10 or 11 years old at the time. I think Evelyn can teach you to swim, and then when you can swim and you can cross the pool by yourself, you can come back and I'll give you a job. So my mum was my first client when I was nearly 13 years old. I taught her she could swim across the pool, and she actually got the job as a swimming instructor. So the manager said, well, because Evelyn has done that for her mum, she obviously has something there, so he gave me a job as well. So in the weekends and in my spare time, I could come in and help out. I didn't get any money for that, but I didn't care. So that's where my career sort of started as a swimming instructor.
Wow.
What about your uncle?
My uncle, that was a bit later on. Probably when I was about 15 years old, I wanted to know more about swimming. So my mum contacted her brother, which is what was my uncle, and he was the coach of the Dutch national team and the Olympic team in the 50s and 60s. So he said, if Evelyn comes to Rotterdam from Zeeland every week, I can teach her and we make sure that she gets qualified. So we did that, but in that time it took a year and a half before you were fully qualified. So every Friday I went to Rotterdam, did the course, and then when I was 16 and a half, I was fully qualified as a swimming instructor.
Amazing. That's a fascinating little journey, because from a very young age you've been teaching swimming.
I was really scared though, because living in Zeeland, that's very protective and you don't see a lot, but Rotterdam was a big town and the trams used to go through the rough parts of town, and I normally sat there like this saying, oh, it's a bit scary, all these people, and who knows what's going to happen. But I survived. So it was good.
So what then led you from teaching swimming to teaching fitness?
When I was 16 and a half, I started teaching the children, and I saw that there were a lot of children that were really scared in the pool.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this is not really the way that you want to instruct kids to become better at swimming. So I started developing my own style. I did storylines for the kids. I told them about frogs going underwater and sea monsters, and that it's not scary. So I went underwater myself, and then come up and say, okay, have a look at this, and it's not scary. And with the swimming ABC, all the kids had to go through a big mat that was dropped in the swimming pool, and they had to swim through the hole. So I would dress up in a bird or an Ernie costume from Sesame Street, and I would be on one side of the mat and the kids go on the other side, and they would swim through and I do the funny stuff on the other side. So that really worked for the children. And then one of the children said, my mum can't swim, but she loves doing fitness. So I said, well, we can do that as well. So I started like doing fitness for the parents of the children, and started in a basic way as well. So that worked out for myself, but I was still pretty young and I thought I need to know more about this. But I didn't have the money to go to do big courses and things like that. So when I was 19, I had a talk to the council that I worked for, and I knew the manager there as well. And I had a talk and I said I would really like to go to IAFC, because that's the biggest gathering together of aquatic people. And if I want to become better, I need to do that. And he said, well, if the council pays for your trip to go over to America, would you be able to do that and then sign up at the council so you can work for the council for 2 years and do your fitness that way? So they paid for my trip. I went to Orlando and did my first IAFC there in 1999.
Was that just when Angie and Julie had taken over, or was that still Ruth's day?
No, they took over a couple of years before.
They took over before that.
About 95, I think they took over. Yes.
So yeah, that was my start of doing IAFCs, and I'm hooked ever since. I can't do without it. It's so good to go over and meet everybody and talk about aquatic fitness and about aquatic things in general. And learning from each other in that environment is just the best ever.
Yeah, definitely. Once you've been bitten by the bug, you want to keep going back.
Definitely.
But how did you hear of IAFC? Were you research, because obviously internet was very new in those days, so how did you hear about their convention?
Yes, I worked for the NVZ in the Netherlands, which was the organization in Netherlands that did a lot together with Sportfondsen. And I went to England a couple of times to go and do a conference with the STA.
Okay, yes.
When I worked at NVZ, they asked me to do something different that nobody had done before. So I went on stage like a theater show, and I got a few actors out to help me out to show what's possible on stage to do with aquatic fitness and learning how to swim.
Wow.
People from the STA were in the audience, and it was in Dutch, obviously. And I had this little blow-up swimming pool on top of the stage, and they were mesmerized. So they invited me to go and do the same thing in England. And I could speak English at that stage, so that was easy for me. So it started with STA, and at the same time, quite a few instructors came to the Netherlands as well, like Craig Stewart and Mimi Adami. So I did a few courses with them, and then I heard about IAFC and how good it was. Pauline Ivans was also one of them. And yeah, I was mesmerized. I just wanted to know more and more, and that's where it started with NVZ and STA, and then later on IAFC in America.
Amazing. That's such a journey. Furthering your career, and you're now obviously living in Australia, not the Netherlands, and you're now presenting at IAFC, and you have your own different journeys. What's your favourite style of Aquaarabics to teach?
My style. We love entertainment in the pool. We love using different types of music, feel-good music that people can relate to. Like, because I'm a bit older, I'm not in my 40s anymore or my 50s anymore. It might be a surprise. So yeah, I know. Tell him he's dreaming. I love the look on people's faces when you do things in a different way, and it's okay to work things up. Like we do that on purpose sometimes, and people look and say, "Oh, haha, it's one of these weird things." But we like to learn and do different styles. But entertainment is probably one of the things that I enjoy the most.
You are both very much the talk of the town when you present, because you bring that entertainment factor to it, not just in your classes but in your outfits.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the things that's in the past a bit.
We've pulled it down a little bit as we've got older. The body doesn't look quite the same as it did.
It happens when you get a bit older that you think, nah, the feathers, that's not us anymore.
So I have a few pictures of when you dressed up as like a mad old professor with a wig on and a white science lab outfit, and then you had a Zimmer frame at one point as well.
Yes.
And there was, I think, Evelyn, you were dressed maybe as a clown. I just have lots of memories of dressing up outfits.
That particular one was a play on the film Benjamin Button.
Benjamin Button.
That was it.
And what happened, we started where I was an old man in a wheelchair, and Evelyn was my nurse, and then we slowly we actually had Katrine and Kim Heerens as also in that little in that presentation of 45 or 50 minutes or whatever it was. And we went from me being 100 years old, and it finished in the cool down as babies, and we actually got in the water and everybody was in babies, and we did a little bit of partner work in babies, and I think the final costumes, we had big dummies or something around.
I remember Catherine Lemayo in the pool going like this.
and we used music from, we started off with classical music and slowly went through, and we ended up finished. We got younger, the music changed to reflect the eras of the 40s and then the 50s. Andrew's sister, I think we did. And then we ended up doing, for the very final cool down, Brahms Lullaby. And that's what we finished with. We did a combination of stretching with flotation work. And that was the curious, I think we called it the curious case. Yeah, so that was that particular one.
Well, I will put up a couple of my pictures at the end of our chat, and then people can see what we're talking about.
Definitely.
So let's ask Greg the same question. How did you start in the industry?
I actually, in the industry of aquatics, it goes right back to when I was a youngster, and I was a low-functioning, non-verbal autistic when I was very, very young. And as I got older and into teenage years, the brain sort of changed and my autism changed to be middle and then eventually higher functioning. Yeah. Now, what happened there was, as I sort of got older, I was never very good in education or anything like that in my younger years or up until my 30s, late 20s, 30s, and then all of a sudden my brain sort of changed and I got whatever subject fascinated me, I'd throw myself 100% into it. And so I was at the age of 18, I was in Army at 17 as in the medical corps. And then at 18, I went into the Victoria State Police Force. And after a couple of years, stress and anxiety started getting to me with all the things you see in everyday life.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was I started in theatre, back row of the chorus, helping building sets, set design, lighting, all that sort of thing. And I became fascinated in that. And that was my escapism through the years of all the things like fatal accidents and murders and that I was attending in my everyday job. And then that slowly grew my fascination of theatre, and then from a amateur actor, I learned tap dancing and singing and things like that. Then I eventually started professional acting on TV and on as my part-time job. And what ended up happening, though, by the time I turned, it was in 1985, 86, I attended a particularly bad fatal accident that 3 people were incinerated in front of me, and that set off post-traumatic stress disorder to a serious degree in me. And I had one more photo after that, and then was the straw that broke the camel's back, and I got out of the police force and I went full-time into theatre as a director producer, and then I ended up starting up a production company called Absolute Concepts of Entertainment, because of my autism side became very creative sort of thing, very weird, off the wall sort of stuff. And I started back in the 1980s experimenting with video graphics, and you see it every day now on TV and talent shows and that. But that was the first time it was ever done, and I did it with a show called Fiddler on the Roof.
I know Fiddler on the Roof, yeah.
And then Channel 9 up in Sydney did a special. I came down for a 3-minute story with a very well-known 60 Minutes reporter at the time and her crew, and they stopped 3 days for filming because we built a set to burn it down for 30 seconds of film time, a complete town. And that was built near the theatre. And then we mixed all the video graphics that I created at the time with people performing live on stage, and they started a thing called total audience reality. Now they call it immersion theatre. And then what ended up happening was I got invited to the Netherlands to present the concept over at NOS in Hilversum in the Netherlands.
That was before he met Kate.
Before I met Evelyn.
I was going to say there's that crossover. Okay.
It is. That was in 87, and then the International Theatre Institute published that concept in 1988. And then at the same time, things built, and then in the early 90s, my theatre company, and that became quite big in Melbourne. I had to relocate to Melbourne for the inductions I had. And I would have something like 9 or 10 pantomimes going in shopping centres and big theatres and things like that.
Wow.
So it was quite interesting. I basically found I was much better behind the scenes directing people who had more talent than me. Put it that way. I would select, really good singers and dancers and actors, and then I'd direct and then write all the productions and stuff like that. And then what happened during that time, I had a break and I went into a show called Me and My Girl, which is the Lambeth Walk musical. I don't know if you know.
I'm not sure if I know that one.
You could be too young, but it's a beautiful, beautiful show. Leaning on the Lamppost came from that show, and a lot of others. And every day I was tap dancing and singing, and I was understudy to the third lead or something like that, and toured Australia. But then I found my weight starting to get bigger and bigger, even though I'm tap dancing every night. And I was in my 40s, so a thing called middle-age spread hit me. And back then I unfortunately did smoke. But how I started losing weight was I started land aerobics over in Western Australia.
Okay.
And we were at the King's. Yeah, we've got the sun streaming in as it's getting close to sunset here. And what ended up happening was every time I felt like eating, I'd go and do a class, an aerobic class or a fitness class. Or if I wanted to smoke, I'd do something. So that's how I stopped smoking from the day I started, and that was back in the early 1990s. And then I did land aerobics, and you may know Marietta Mahoney. Marietta, I actually went to her step classes at the time. She wasn't doing aqua, but she was doing step, and she actually taught me a lot to do with land aerobics.
That's amazing.
And it's a very small world, and then as a result, that opened the door for my brain to say, time for a career change.
Okay.
And I went up to Sydney to learn off the best people like Lexi Williams and Jeff Ahern. I don't know if you know those names, but back in the day, they were world champion. Marcus Irwin, world champion aerobics, and all these sort of people. They taught me land aerobics. And I did a class as part of the course with a lady called Kerry Parkinson. And I don't know if you remember Kerry Parkinson back in the early 2000s.
She can't. Haylley wouldn't.
Oh yeah, that's right.
No, I remember the name. I just don't think I ever met her. But yeah.
And as a result of that, that got me interested in aqua. That was in the early 1990s. And I went and did a course in Melbourne under the then best trainers in Australia, which were Jennifer Shembry Portelli and Helen Banger and whatever.
Okay, I do know them ones.
Jennifer in Australia is an icon.
Okay.
She's sort of like a Ruth Sova in Aquarius in Australia, going back to that time. And then what happened was it was Kerry Parkinson that said, you need, and I meant to tell you, after 6 weeks, I thought, I can do that, and I decided to become an instructor because of my theatre experience. And I was, like now, very, very shy, as you can see. And as a result, Kerry, I started presenting, and I started presenting at Hilux in Australia, which is Australia's biggest fitness convention and network for fitness professionals in Australia. And then Kerry Parkinson said, oh, you should go to IAFC. And that was 1996, I think was the first one I did. And I did during it, well, there was talk because I'm a bit of an extrovert sometimes when people are around. It's weird because in other places I'm very much an introvert, but around people, interviews, I'm an extrovert. And what ended up happening was it was a lunchtime, and I think Kerry Parkinson or somebody had said, you should see Greg's style. He mixes theatre with aquatics. So, and Angie and Julie was the head then. They'd been doing the head for 2 years or something like that. I can't remember the exact year. They were early 90s, but I think it was 95 or 96 or something like that. And that was at Orlando, and I did a 20-minute lunchtime excerpt. And as a result of that, then they invited me to do another an actual class at the same one as a special class. And as a result, because I did can, but then my flexibility, because I've done martial arts all my life, my flexibility, my leg could go right up over my head. So,
did you wear a can skirt?
No, not then. I just wore Australia. No, because I wasn't expecting to present. You see, I used to present that sort of stuff in Australia, but I didn't take costumes or anything. Then the next year I applied and I was accepted, and then that's when my costumes and that started. And yeah, the sun is really streaming through the lines here, and that's how I got started at IAFC, and then I was presenting every year at IAFC, and then in 2000, yeah, exactly 2000. That's right. It was over in Orlando, and I was on the way down to the swimming pool, and that was, you may have seen my costume with the big cloak, and it's got beautiful colours with the feathers and all that. That was Aqua Dream Time was my presentation, and it was a combination of American, Indian and Aboriginal, Australian Aboriginal styles of music, but all done with yin and yang type thing, external and external presentation. And a blonde-haired lady jumped in the elevator with me, and she was on the way to my class, and that's when we met, and then we started up a long-distance relationship from Australia to Netherlands, and then we met again over at Las Vegas. That was the year that I picked up that AEA kindly gave me a presentation style global award, and what happened was Evelyn operated my PowerPoint and whatever, because I think I did the keynote for that one. And then 12 months later, back at the same elevator in 2002 IAFC, what happened was Evelyn was on the way to present for the very first time to an American audience at IAFC, and I proposed to her in the same elevator. And that's how we came to meet. And Evelyn, being Dutch, wanted to get married in the elevator to save money.
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen. No, we got married in Australia, and then we started up Game Glow, the Global Aquatic Instructors Network in Netherlands in 2002, because I at the time was working in the counter-terrorist squad as my full-time job with Australian Federal Police.
So had you gone back to being in the
policeman?
Yeah.
In law enforcement. I thought I had gotten over post-traumatic stress because of all the entertainment and all the work, and I just threw myself, and I did a few degrees and stuff like that. And anyway, what ended up happening was I had a self-mutilator, unfortunately, at Melbourne Airport, and I had to tackle him down and whatever, and I was covered and waiting to see if I'd got AIDS, and there was a few traumatic things that happened in over a few months in 2004, and Evelyn said, no, I want you to quit and come over, and we'll start up a aquatic industry type or group over in Netherlands. So I resigned then on November the 11th, And on November the 12th, I was on the plane to Netherlands, and that's when Evelyn and I literally got together, and the rest is history.
I mean, that is an incredible journey, because the pair of you having your own independent stories and then coming together at IAFC is just absolutely lovely.
You know what the weird thing is, Haylley, that when you do things like entertainment, I did that in Netherlands and Belgium and England and on that side of Europe, and Greg did the same in other countries, in Australia,
Asia, New Zealand.
Then we got together, and it was like the first time I saw Greg with that Aquatic Dream Time. It was like looking in the mirror and seeing yourself there, but in a male version, doing similar type things. It's really strange.
We look a little bit different, though. Evelyn had hair.
I still have that. But there's not too many people in the world that did stuff like what we did.
Time, yeah.
No, and I don't know. You know, the characters that you bring to it, the I want to say drama, but the story that you tell with your classes and your workouts. There isn't anyone that touches you guys on that front. You know,
thank you, Haylley. That's lovely.
I think that it is something that is absolutely inspiring, and the only presenter, sorry, my dog's just walked in, if you hear some little noises, the only one that I can almost bring the somewhat near to the drama, the additional clothing, the music, is Mimi. Mimi Rodriguez done the ballet style, wearing a tutu, and she had belly dancing, and she wore the waist bells. They're not bells, are they? They're symbols.
Yeah, the belly dancing sort of. I know what you mean.
Yeah. And so I don't think that there's anyone that does do the level of that compared to you guys. That is definitely something you guys bring to the table.
Thank you. What we try to do is, and what we've always tried to emphasise, is it's not just physicality in fitness. You have to stimulate the brain. Like the endorphins are released, yes, by exercise, but also released by stimulating the brain in fun, laughter, excitement, taking them on stories. And by mixing the two, you basically get a double dose of all the feel-good things.
You're allowed to have fun and let it out, let it shine.
And that's what, and then when we sort of realised that worked really well, that's why we really emphasised it, and it got bigger and bigger in styles, and then we created Aquatainment and Turn the Tap on Aqua, where it taught tap dancing to people in the pool. There are little things like that. And what's great is when you tap dance in the pool, nobody can hear. The only one that's going to be embarrassed is the instructor up on the deck. You see? So that's basically it. But, that's how we got together. And then, of course, in later years, we've started really developing programs and design and specialised in different areas. And because a lot of people was doing leadership and motivation things, which I've always done, we thought we needed to really focus on something that wasn't done and hadn't been explored enough. And a lot of people were doing special populations, but the area that seemed to miss out the most was autism and the autism spectrum. As a result, and Evelyn has had something like 40 years hands-on experience with hundreds, if not thousands, of people on the autism spectrum.
Yeah, I'm that old. Yeah. I am.
Oh, she's only 28 actually. But,
well, yeah, she did start teaching at the age of 5, right?
Yeah, her mum. And then basically Evelyn's been on to me for years to start to create a program for the autism spectrum, and I put it off because I knew it was a really big job, because when you talk of the autism spectrum, you're talking comorbidities of people who's on there. You know, they have so many different ones, and you have everything from Fragile X to Down syndrome, epilepsy, GI, everything sort of combines in the different ones. So both of us had to create something that taught instructors an understanding of autism before they could actually teach those on the spectrum. So we just actually, it's in the hands of A.R.E.A right now, and the manual, that was the original manual that was sent to them, 603 pages. It was quite extensive, and now poor Julie and Angie and everybody else are probably pulling their hair out. So, but I know they're doing a brilliant job, and that's going to be released American summer, autumn time sort of thing. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we've been doing in recent times, specialising in the areas that we thought there was a lacking. And also a major factor of that is 91% of people on the autism spectrum and their carers' parents don't attend swimming pools or fitness centres because of not feeling welcome, because of the instructors, the managements, not understanding why they act the way and how to handle meltdowns and all these sort of gear, and how to actually teach somebody that. Our star in the program is a guy called Thomas, and he's 32, but with a mind operating of around about 6 years old. But he's like Dustin Hoffman in The Rain Man, brilliant in certain fields, but then other things we have.
He's still very young.
Yeah, and Evelyn actually brings herself, and that's a secret, bringing yourself to the level and then slowly developing your cognitive. Anyway, that's what we're up to now.
No, so with the course, its focus is on autism, but is it focused on all aquatic side of things? So is it swimming and fitness, or is it just fitness?
It's more the fitness, because there's already autism and swimming out there.
Yes.
In different countries. I think England's got it, and then Australia's got it. But there was nothing actually developed for exercise overall in water, and also nothing is really shared of how to actually teach it. And that was a major factor that we both found when we did aqua swimming for autism courses and that. And we qualified in Australia and whatever. But we found that they weren't actually teaching the instructors how to teach somebody on the spectrum. It's very different to teaching a class, you know.
Yeah, so I have personal experience with teaching swimming lessons to autistic. I think the earliest I took an autistic child on was 4, and then I had them all the way. I had lots of different variations of autism. The oldest I think I taught was 12. The different spectrum of how they independently respond, react, absorb, all of that communication is very, very different depending upon the child.
Exactly.
But I never have got to that point in the fitness side of things. I've never had the autism customers. I've never had that as an adult coming to me for fitness. Does that make sense? So
yes. Well, as I said, 91% of people on the spectrum don't go. You know, a lot of people think autism, they always associate, like, autism really starts showing around 3 or 4 years of age. That's when they start realising that the non-verbal and other things are affected, and there's something wrong with the eyes and hearing senses. And a lot of people forget that once you're autistic for life. It's not like it's something that goes away. It can change, like in my case, it changed to be high functioning, but others may not, and in some cases it can actually regress as you get older and you go back to being younger and younger, which is rare, but it happens quite a bit. And what's out there is there's a lot of people on the spectrum who would adore to go to the pool. As I say, you've got 91%, and the time that they can go is when the pools aren't being used, you know, like lunchtime and the quiet times of a pool. Mornings. And that's when you can do your autism classes and actually design the classes. And that's what we've covered too, from low functioning to people that are high functioning, people with Asperger's, people who maybe have bipolar and all those things. And you understand that from the first part of the course of recognising that. And probably the most important factor is when a client first starts with you, we've created a 5-page questionnaire, and that comes as part of one of the performers. And what that is it gives you a history of the person, so you can then understand each and individual person. Once you understand that, you understand what sets off meltdowns, what they love, how you can get the best out of them, and then you can slowly develop them in exercise. Like, it may be very hard at the start to get them to do 8 steps to the right and 8 steps to the front, but then the secret is patterns. Linking up the 4 and keep it slowly growing and make them feel comfortable. Keep it simple.
Yeah. The weirdest thing is, my first presentation at IAFC was something called traffic jam. And I dressed up as a police officer, and that was a non-verbal one.
Right.
So I did the whole class without having to speak one word. So everything was like with your hands, with your body language. I had a whistle. I had one of these police cane sort of things, batons that I used. And everything worked out really well. I had them in lines, and I didn't have to speak at all. Now, with a lot of the clients that are on the spectrum, they don't like loud noises, and whether that's swimming lessons or aquatic fitness, I use that traffic jam method up to today, because it's very easy for people to go and see what you do. If you have big movements, everybody knows what's going on, and especially people on the autism spectrum. They don't talk, they don't have that rapport, and they enjoy the non-verbal part.
Yeah, so Linda works within a swimming pool that's within a hospital, and it's a very special pool.
Say hello to Linda for us, we miss her.
Oh, I will. With her swimming pool, they have all manner of disabilities, mental as well as physical. And
very much so.
Yeah, the mental, they don't have specific times independently, but there are certain care homes or care centres that have like a certain slot that they've then hired the swimming pool. Oh, and I see sometimes where they might have maybe 6 with different levels of mental learning disabilities. Yep. And they can be from the age of 16 to the age of, let's say, 25. They can be quite old, but obviously their mental ages are 8, 9, 10 or whatever, or low, or even lower than that for some of them. Yes, and they are with a carer, but it might be one carer to 2 or 3 individuals. So the carer's got like all this different stuff happening. So from my point of view, watching that, sometimes it is scary as hell, because they're all doing their own thing. One might be in the corner splashing the corner because they love the feel of the splash. One might just be doing jumping up and down and popping up and down in the middle of the swimming pool, whereas the other one might actually be trying to do something else. Is the idea of the training that you're offering to be more of a one-to-one, or more as a group, or is it more how
yes, is you can.
Yeah, I'm just asking if Evelyn wants to explain on me. Well, we've actually covered it so that we cover personal training one-on-one, and that's very good for people who's on the lower functioning level that you're talking about. Then we've also covered in small groups in it so that you can have half a dozen. And the good thing for instructors and therapists is quite often funding is available for those people to attend, and it can actually be quite profitable if you've got half a dozen. And that's why we created the pro forma of this 5-page questionnaire, because everybody has to fill it out. It's obviously very confidential, but then you know all the little idiosyncrasies of the people that's going to be in your class, which you've got a refresher sheet before you do the class, so that you know what sets them off, certain people off, and what doesn't. And also another major area is wandering, which you have to be very careful of, because if you've got half a dozen and somebody slips off and they want to go wandering off, and you probably heard the news stories and all that, happens all the time. But there's a lot of people out there that I think would flock, who's in their 40s and 50s, who's on the spectrum, who a lot of them have got now living independently from the carers, but they're available and would jump at something. Again, we've tried to cover about opportunities for instructors and therapists, because we know how hard it is to make a living in the aquatic business, let's be honest. So, you know, the more little things up your sleeve you've got. And I think the secret is understanding the various comorbidities, which is a complete module on itself, so that you really understand things like the splashing and what you were talking about. We've created, there's a pictorial system called PETS, and we've created our own and added something like 40 different pictures that instructors can show, so they know there's a time to splash and there's not a time. You don't jump in the pool because they don't know whether it's deep or shallow. It's just water. And of course, you try to prevent spinal injuries. They know they have to walk down the stairs holding on something and not go in the side, because that way you're keeping an eye. All those little things you have to be very aware when you're dealing with people or handling people who are on the spectrum.
Definitely.
Your question.
And you have to get it from you have to start it from very early on as well, the rhythm and the patterns, so that they acknowledge that.
Very much so. Don't keep it simple, and then you slowly build, and then eventually you get a lot of people who then can mix with general population classes, because they're feeling confident in what they're doing. And you've already taught them how to do rocking horses, and you've taught them how to do a jumping jack. So they know when they see an instructor physically doing something, they know what to do, and they don't feel, ostracized from the group. And that's how you actually intermingle them into a bigger group, population groups.
Yeah, fantastic. And is that course via IAFC this year is going to be launched? And then it can be purchased through A.E.A. Is that how?
Yes, it's going on. A.E.A's, we've sort of handing it over to A.E.A because, let's face it, they're in 40 or 50 countries. Got a reach of 40,000 instructors around the world, and they're passionate about really getting a lot of different things in aquatic exercise and handling all population groups. And it's been probably one of the most neglected groups of the entire lot, mainly because of so hard, the complexity of putting a course like that together. It's taken us 14 months, and we worked right over the COVID period of lockdown in Australia, and that's what we worked on. So it's taken a long time, a lot of work there, and then it's going to go online, and we've sort of said, and A.E.A agrees, that really, before you can do the course, you need to be qualified as an aquatic instructor, understand water, the principles, all the other things that the different courses in aquatics teaches. You have to be qualified before you start, because the way it's been written is expecting people to know that, expected that they know something about the way the human body works beforehand, because they're going to learn a lot more.
So it's been a journey for you both, as well as you both together, to where you've come today. What would you say you have seen change within the industry? What has been a improvement or a change for, you know, a different journey? What have you seen, especially Evelyn? What have you seen from all the years of teaching?
Well, what I've seen in the Netherlands, and that it takes 1.5 years to become fully qualified. And then I went to Australia, and you can become an instructor in
3 days.
2 or 3 days. And that's it. So you can work at a bakery and then think, oh, I want to become an instructor. And then in 3 days.
Mind you, you have to get hours up working with another instructor, but the course is only, I don't really think that's enough personally, and both of us.
Yeah, that's the main difference. But
the biggest thing in exercise science I've seen through the years is that it was always a old person sort of attitude, and, you know, back in those days they had the milk containers, and now you've got really good equipment. Like you probably noticed on our Facebook thing, we love getting all the latest things, like, you know, the trampolines in the water, and then
boxing bags,
Aqua Gym, and Aqua War Gym we had, and from Hungary, and so we love getting all the new knickknacks and whatever to experiment and share with different people. But we've noticed that the age groups, and now the focus isn't just on old people. Like, you ever look at the Italians, the Portuguese, and you know, they've really developed well. The younger group, and have a look at the pools are full, and they're between 20 to 30 years of age. So that's the biggest change I've seen. And then the sharing of knowledge has become much, much better. Like, you can never forget people like Ruth Sover, Karen Westfall, Mimi Adami, Terry Mitchell, Laura Ribbons from Cayman Islands. There's just so many that have shared their knowledge with us, and so we've sort of tried to carry that on and never forget that where our roots started from. Like, when you've got a good grounding, the more you train and learn, the more you appreciate what's involved in the aquatic industry, and that's what we're seeing. The education factor is getting a lot better, and the expectations now by the clients now know, can recognise somebody that hasn't done a course and learnt about it to somebody that's a land instructor coming in. Okay, let's do it and try to do land. It's sort of not.
Well, in the old days, it used to be called Aquarobics, and the vision you get is old women with things above the water, and that was Aquarobics.
Yeah, of course,
and
everything was above the water because it looked pretty, you know.
Yeah, nowadays it's aquatic fitness, and it really is fitness. Like, it's very different to 20 or 30 years ago.
Yes, there's been lots of discussion about the naming of the classes, and how you title the class will then reflect on who will come and who's attracted to those classes as well. But there are different terminologies being used, but the Aquarobics, the aqua fitness, water fitness, all those different ones can allow you to then have a different style or a different rhythm.
Absolutely.
So from the title of the class, that can then obviously change the way that people view it. But yeah, definitely, hopefully, shall I say, not definitely, hopefully, we can keep the younger generations interested in coming into the pool, rather than the perception just to remain as being for the older generation.
Definitely.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot has to do with the name. You're right, exactly. Like, you know, aqua strength, or in the things that sort of Catrian is doing strong. A lot of strong, you know, sort of thing. It envisaged something into the mind. Oh, this is for me because it's going to develop me and, you know, tone me up, and yes, so lots to do with different names. Like, I used to play around a lot with a lot of names through the years.
You obviously have got lots of different kit. You've spoken about the fact that you are enthusiastic with all the new varieties, from the to the strength stuff, but what's your favorite piece of equipment to use?
Well, we've got aqua poles and we'll go. I think personally, Evelyn can tell hers. Personally, I love the drag equipment from that. What was his name?
Aqualogic.
Yes,
Aqualogic.
Aqualogic. Tadlington was the one that actually invented it all. Tadlington Stout, I think was his name. And I love the drag and the power. That's one of my favourites for dragging equipment. I have always loved the rubberized equipment because of the isometric contraction work you can do by just holding it, and in the water it's still a really hard workout, and often the water cools you down from the burn that you get. So I love that, and we do Hydro Rider and all those sort of things, but they're probably my two favourite out of all the whiz bang things that's out there. Like we've got the aqua pole that all goes together like a circuit too. Yeah. But they're probably my two favourite. Very basic stuff, but it creates real good toning abilities and that. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know how to use it. So, and you, Evelyn?
Yeah, with the a lot of autistic people, they love the boxing bag in short spurts. Absolutely. Because they can go and they can get rid of their energy, and then sometimes when it gets too much, I tell them a story, and then we go and run around it and use it as an exercise machine in a different way. We create a whirlpool or something, or we just fish or kangaroos that hop around it. Another one I really enjoy are the trampolines, because I do a lot with them as well, similar type things. But I think what I use most in the pool for a lot of different age groups is my puzzle pieces. I have big puzzle pieces, jigsaws, and I can use them for the swimming lesson, so they can go on their back and use it to keep above water. Go to the other side of the pool and make the puzzle pieces. With autistic persons, you can actually build a floor, put other toys on top of them. You have your different colors. You can put colors together, so the red together and the green and the yellow together, or you can mix them up. I've got a lot of rubber duckies, so one duck can be on one puzzle piece. So I really enjoy using them as well.
That's amazing.
She's the big kid.
I am the big kid.
What's the picture on the puzzle?
I've got a few different ones. Normally I use the ones with the colors because they go well, but I also have a puzzle of Dora, and I think that's a little bit old-fashioned now because the kids now love Bluey and Frozen and things like that. So that's something that I use quite often.
In balls, you use a lot of balls.
I use a lot of balls in the aquatic fitness, the smaller ones, so you can actually hang on to that. Another thing that I use as an educational one is frisbees, and then I have plastic fruit and vegetables.
Yay, Mushy, harash.
Yeah, Mushy's frisbee.
If you're watching this, Mushy, we love you, we miss you.
Yeah, Mushy uses them in the pool for drag equipment and things like that. But I also use them to go and play waiter. So I have plastic fruit and plastic vegetables, so I can put them up, and I can educate about having brain food or takeaway food or bad food for you.
Who originated that? We saw that at IAFC. Was it?
I think it was Susan Abel-Sullivan that did that for the first time.
And it's great.
And it's a fantastic thing to go and use in your pool.
Nice. Really good. I think there's going to be obviously a little bit of time before we can use a lot of equipment in the water when we go back from COVID. Yeah.
Well, what I can't understand about that though, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought chlorine in the water disinfects everything as soon as it goes in the water. So I can't understand why, if it's not cleaned in the water, and as long as they don't hand it to somebody else, well, they can't use the equipment themselves as individuals. But who am I? I'm not an expert in that field, so I won't say anything. But that, to me, you know, I think if each thing is sanitised, and then only that person is allowed to touch that piece of equipment, but it makes it hard if you're doing a circuit. That's why circuits, you really don't touch anything because you're changing all the time. So
I think they're allowing people to have, like, for example, their own independent piece of kit for that whole club. They can't share.
That makes sense.
But then it's going into like a big water barrel, and it has to soak in the water barrel for like 20 minutes after the class, which is no real difference to it being soaked in the water for that amount of time as well. But it depends upon each leisure centre's having its own ruling, and obviously from that, each country and each area has its own ruling as well. So
and how long between each classes too, that enables that time. Like if they're back-to-back classes, then of course you can't do that type of disinfectant. So the instructor just needs to think out of the box, and you know, there's a lot of movements you can do without equipment and still create drag and turbulence and all those sort of things. So
we got these, we can use these.
Exactly.
So if there's a new instructor coming and they're wanting some advice, what would you give them as a piece of advice becoming a new aqua instructor?
Don't try to do too much too quick, because a lot of people get excited, enthusiastic, and they do this course and that course and that course, and as a result, they wonder why the classes die because they're trying to do too much. Keep it simple. That's a secret. Keep it simple. Plan methodically your classes out initially. After a while, you start to know to do it without having to write it down. And that's basically what I would suggest. Keep it simple, and yes, go and learn as much as you can, but don't try to put it all in one class or all in 5 weeks, something that you may have over the COVID lockdowns and that done 10 courses. So you can imagine what your clients are going to say. Well, what are you doing? My brain doesn't, because they've learned that. Just take it and think methodically and slowly build it like a jigsaw puzzle, putting it together, or like the pyramids, one brick at a time, and slowly build it up. You will?
Yeah, and make sure that you look at your class. What do you want to do in your class? Think about it before you start, because a lot of people that first start, they go out there and think, oh, I'll make it up on the spot. And the first 5 minutes is fine, and maybe the second 5 minutes is fine, and then they hit the brick wall. So think about what you want to do beforehand. And like Greg says, keep it simple, do little bits and pieces for one class, and then the next class you can do something else.
You know, always remember, your class doesn't know what you've planned, your plan. So if you don't get everything done, because maybe they aren't as quick picking up learning curves and all the different things, then that's okay. You say at the end, you guys were brilliant. Now, next week, we're going to add on to this part. So think about it during the week. And all you do is finish off the rest of that class that you missed out, that one. And so there you go. And then you only have half class to worry about. That's another way where people start getting frustrated when they don't get everything in that they planned. And you have to remember, you win over your clients in the first 2 minutes, and that's why you do your meets and greets and whatever, maybe the elbows or whatever, but nothing else there. But you know, it's the face, the rapport you create. Then you do your class, which may be interval class or high, peak class or whatever it may be, a HIT class. And then it's the last 5 minutes, and this is where people go wrong. They actually try to rush things, and they don't finish off with a little bit of education that actually makes the people feel, could be, we've worked the bicep today. And, did you know that? And you just add a little thing at the end so that they walk away feeling, hey, I've been given a present of knowledge, and it's those last couple of minutes that people's got to remember. The bit in between is the exercising of the body and the mind, but they remember the start and the finish, and because they'll know whether, oh, I like this instructor, oh, she's had a bad night tonight, last night, or something like that. So they're the things you need to think about when you're doing a class, and never get frustrated near the end, because that's the last thing that people see. Same as not being prepared at the start of a class. One of my pet hates when I go anywhere is I know a good instructor right at the start, if they've got everything prepared and they start, and the clients then get to know, if I turn up at 6 o'clock, there's a 2-minute entry thing and whatever, and then it starts at 2 minutes past 6, then that's going to get the people that are late. Sorry, the class is still starting. We're not waiting for you, because otherwise it's like, that's why IAFC is such a good convention, because Angie and Julie and everybody who runs it is meticulous that you have to finish. The 5 minutes come up, the 2 minutes come up, signs to say, let you know, otherwise the music is cut off. And that's why, yes, and that's why each class in each session runs in clockwork. Otherwise, you're going to end up being an hour past the knockoff time, and they've already prepared maybe a big dinner or a party or something like that as part of the convention, and everything has to be run like clockwork. Start it in your classes and you win your people over, a lot of people. They'll know straight away, oh, I can't turn up 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late, because I'm going to miss out.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. And there are those instructors out there who are they don't enjoy Aqua as much, and they do it as a additional class to their other classes, and sometimes they just have that
go through the
go through the motions.
Go through no preparation.
Go through the motions,
and you see it straight away. And I know if I'm paying good money, like I think we pay a bit more here in Australia, like our classes that you come to our classes, what do they pay, $12 or $15 each per person, and they expect to get their money's worth, you know. And hey, I totally agree with that, you know. So, but I must admit, you know, sort of it's something that I would get frustrated with if I went to, say, your class, Haylley, and you, oh, sorry, I was late, I got tied up talking to, sorry, you know, that doesn't wash with me, you know. So I tend to, when I'm looking or assessing instructors or whatever, I tend to look from the time I arrive at the pool, customer service at the front desk, all the little bits that make up a really good customer good feel rapport, and that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the experience from the moment you walk in to the moment you walk out.
Exactly. Spot on.
So I know that, Greg, you're talking about kind of writing more than teaching, but the question that we end with is, when you retire, what would you like to be remembered for?
Personally, a sharer. I'd like to, because the last thing I want to do is die with the knowledge I've learned through my life. And I see so much people hiding things, oh, you have to pay for every single little thing you do and whatever. And you'll notice that we haven't got merchandise out there much. We've never ever have, because we haven't been more in the industry to make a living or make money out of it. It's more for the wellness aspect and the development, and we've always focused on instructors and trainers and that, to develop them. And that's why we love going to every lecture we can. You'll see that we're not so much at the pool, we're in the lecture room learning more stuff, and because that's when you learn. And I would like to be remembered that what I learned, I shared and I gave back to what the industry gave to me. That's personally. What about you, Evelyn?
Yeah, I think it's the same with myself as well. What I would like, and I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years time that
Evelyn's mum turns 99 this year, so she may make it.
So it is possible. It is possible, but that people look back and say we learned so much. We didn't learn how to swim, but we learned a new lifestyle. Like there's so much you can do in the water, and there is no fear anymore. You can go and have fun and learn at the same time.
That's
Because
amazing.
a lot of the times in the old days, swimming wasn't fun. A lot of children, they don't enjoy swimming because it's cold and you just stand there and don't have fun. So that's what I try to do, is educate people, share the fun that I get out of my job, and I hope that in quite a few years' time that people look back at that and said, well, Evelyn has done that. I really have a good memory of that.
Yeah, no, it's lovely, absolutely lovely. And between you two, you're a dynamic duo, a bit unstoppable with your with your style.
We are very lucky to have each other,
Yes,
so we can
totally
actually talk about things and what do you think, and together we come up with new ideas and different things. And even in the writing, I write a few books as well, different books to what Greg does, but he helps me and I help him. So it's like that.
It's teamwork.
It's really teamwork.
I love
And
it.
we've got IAFC and A.R.E.A to thank for that. So.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely. And it's a lovely story. It's a lovely journey that you two have both been on, and it is such an inspiration to have, to see the fact that you have obviously now developed your own level of education as well with your autism fitness. What's the title of it? What are you calling it?
This particular program, it's going to be a certification program called Autism Spectrum Aquatics.
Okay, so yeah, that is
A.S.A, the Kingdom of A.S.A, the Kingdom
A.S.A.
of Autism Spectrum Aquatics. That's a whole name of it, but we just call it A.S.A.
Fantastic. And that is going to bring such a new dynamics to our pool classes, and having the learning difficulties in the pool, and allowing them to have their own fitness class within the aquatic community. You know, it's fantastic. So I do wish you all the luck with that, and I hope it is a great success, and that we all do then have our own autistic classes or
It'll be brilliant.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, because you know, like I said, I've done the kids, I've taught the kids for years, but I never crossed it to the adult section. And then when I see these adults in Linda's pool, I will then have that on board, and I might go to the management and say, right, we need to set up these classes.
And you realise just how many people are out there that you had no idea. And also you have to remember the fatality rate in water, because people on the autism spectrum are attracted naturally to water because of the essential things that water does to the body, and that's why it's like a magnet to a lot. That's why it's important that they're taught to know how to use the water, not just in swimming, but in other ways, and the rules around water. That's why we created these cards and things like that, so that it's easy to learn that and teach that to those people.
So I'm going to say goodbye now. Take care and have a good day.
Thank you very much. And to everybody who watched,
thanks everyone.
Keep tuning into Haylley and all her different interviews, because you'll learn a lot about the people around the world who's actually writing and creating things to do with aquatics. And to all our friends that we can't see, we really dislike being stuck in Australia.
We come and visit you as soon as COVID is over. We'll do another world tour.
We're going to get
so
our
tell Linda we're coming.
So
I will.
And go to America and wherever around the world, over to Europe, and I'm missing the West End Theatre very much. So I want to get back and see a few shows.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you very much. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thanks.